Hello, Facebook Live. Good to see you guys. Listen, have you ever heard of the story of Ivanhoe? We love reading classics when my girl was growing up, and that was one of my favorites. I can't tell you how many times I've read it. In the story of Ivanhoe, it's back in medieval times, and it's the Normans and the Saxons, and it's kind of like that around that Robin Hood kind of time. And there is a young woman, a beautiful woman, who ends up being accused of being a sorceress. And so she asks for trial by combat in order to prove that she's innocent, which means whoever fights for her, if they win, then that means God is saying that she's innocent. And so she calls out for a champion. She calls out all across the country, looking for someone that would be willing to come and fight on her behalf. And as the book goes on, I watched the movie as well, they're waiting and they're waiting, and it's almost time, and they're going to burn her at the stake, and the champion has not showed up. And finally, Ivanhoe steps in, and he fights on her behalf, and he wins. When I think of that story, it made me ask the question about whether you know how, as a parent, to be your child's champion. Hi, I'm Anita Gibson. I'm a coach, speaker, and educational strategist, and I want to come and get parents to think about just how amazing they are and how powerful they are, and the impact and influence that they can have on their child's lives. And so today I'm talking about being a champion. And so I shared the story about Ivanhoe and how this beautiful Jewess called out for someone to help her, someone to deliver her, someone to be her champion. So we had, there was a time when our daughter Danielle was struggling with her reading. And, I hadn't thought about the fact that if she's struggling with her reading at home, then she's struggling with her reading at church. And I went into her Sunday school classroom one day and realized that the teacher was going around the room asking people to read. I realized in that moment that Danielle must have been terrified every time she walked into the Sunday school room, because she was hoping and praying that the teacher did not call on her. And I realized that she needed a champion. And so I pulled the Sunday school teacher aside, and I shared with her that Danielle was having a struggle with her reading, and that it would be really uncomfortable for her to be called on. And so that worked for a while. Teacher just didn't call on her. But eventually, all the other children were reading, and so she wanted to read as well. So we then went back to the teacher and said, can we practice ahead of time a specific part of the lesson, and then allow Danielle to read that part? And so the teacher agreed. And we would practice with her at home. And then on that Sunday, she'd go into Sunday school prepared to read her paragraph. And it just pumped her up. It made her feel just like the other children. It gave her just the support that she needed so that she could be successful. And I realized that I needed to become her champion. What about you? Does your child need a champion? Is it at church? Is it at school? Is it in sports? Is there some place that they need some additional support? They need someone to stand up for them and say, that's not fair, or can you give it to them another way? Or had you considered this? We make assumptions that just because the system is a certain way, that there is not any accommodations that can be made. But you never know. If you ask, what might be able to be changed? But when you start thinking like a champion, you begin to look in your child's world and see where are the places that you might need to stand up on their behalf, like I stood up on Danielle's behalf in that Sunday school. I cannot tell you the difference that it made in her confidence, in her peace, because she knew when she walked into that classroom that she had what she needed to be able to read her Sunday school lesson. And so she walked away feeling like she could do it just like all the other students could. And so I want you to know that in the school system, there are teachers who definitely have expertise. They have gone to school, they have degrees, but nobody knows your child like you do. There are things that you realize and understand about your child that if you bring that wisdom to their teachers, to their coaches, you can help them to go a long way. So please don't ever feel like you don't have the right to speak for your child. Sometimes their very future and destiny is based on the fact of you understanding that they need a champion. And when you become that champion on their behalf, they will be able to reach heights in their life, in their school, in their sports that they would never have reached if you had not stepped in that way. I have a book that's coming out. It's called Starfinder. It's a book that gives parents strategies for helping struggling students win. It'll be coming out sometime in June. I encourage you to try to pick up a copy when you can, because it has strategies in there for how to be a champion for your child and how to help them in all the different ways and areas that they need. If you're thinking about maybe you need even more one-on-one help, I am also a coach and specifically an educational strategist. So you can check me out at AnitaGibson.com, and there's more details there about some of the services that I offer. I absolutely am honored that God has called me to this work, and I am determined that I'm going to get the word out that every child is a star, and that we as parents are star finders, and we have the opportunity to find out what the greatness is in our child, to focus in on that, not just on where they're struggling, because everybody has a struggle, but where are they great and where do they shine? When we can find out that, we will help them to reach the destiny that they were created for by God before they were even born. This is Anita Gibson, coach, speaker, educational strategist, and I am just here tonight to let you know that you are a champion for your child, and they will win. All right, guys, love you. Good night.